Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South Women's History Month edition. Yes, Women's History Month, very, very important. And of course, if you've been missing the shows, just want to let you know, of course, every guest this month will be a Black woman because I love to highlight Black women on my show in general. So this is, it's kind of special for me to do this every single month of March. And on this episode, I have a very special guest, someone that does a lot of different things, whether it be acting, whether it be a comedian, writing. I mean, it's just a boatload of things. There's nothing you don't do. That would be Eunice Elliott. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for celebrating Black women, not just this month. I'm sure you do it all the time, but thank you for inviting us on your show this month.
Of course, and of course with this month, and for those that aren't aware, you don't have to. And the Black women that I have on my show this month, it is not exclusive to sports. No. Mm-hmm. We're going through all different ranges and things like that too. So that's what I just want to make everyone aware, of course. But we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about your journey, your career. We're going to get into that in one moment, but of course, with every show this month, we're going to open it up with the Black Girl Magic Moment, where you highlight a moment or you highlight a person. And in this show, we will be highlighting Angela Bassett. Now,
Let's go.
I would say she's 65 years old, which
wow.
I mean, she doesn't even look like she's 60. She looks like she could be the same age as me.
She's gorgeous.
And I mean, she just is one that is believed in herself from the beginning. Her mom did not take any of the C's. No. She wasn't getting any C's in school. You got to get the A's and B's. She got one C, and her mom kind of told her, "Hey, we don't do average up in here." So basically, she was a little bit of history about her. She actually went to high school in Florida. She was the first African American to be named to the National Honor Society for the high school that she went to, which that's a little bit of history. Yeah. She actually went to Yale and actually graduated from there and got a master's degree there, and went and worked in New York, actually in a beauty salon while she was actually doing, getting acting jobs in the New York theater. Now, of course, you know her from her first role, first TV appearance, I should say, was a made-for-TV movie called Double Take back in 1985. And of course, she moved to LA in 1988. Well, a little known fact as well, she actually had a guest appearance on 227 in 1989.
I remember that.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like she might have been like a young single mother. I think she had just had a baby or something on that episode.
I got to go back and watch because I cannot remember.
You weren't even born yet. You weren't born.
Yes, I was. I was born then. But I would say the movies that, of course, very, very memorable movies that she was in. Boys in the Hood, of course, Malcolm X. Of course, she played Katherine Jackson in the Jackson's American Dream in 1992. Of course, everyone remembers that. Everyone was gathered around the TV watching that one at that point in time.
Right.
Wayne Tink's Hill. You can't not forget that. Of course, she done burned the car up, burned the clothes up, all that.
And rightfully so.
And then, of course, we got How Stella Got Her Groove Back, where she was, Taye Diggs with the fake Jamaican accent in that movie. So, but now, what's that?
Can't be mad at him. It was okay. We accept it. That's back when Taye Diggs was like a heartthrob for real.
Yeah, he was trying to do his thing back then. Everybody's talking about, well, let's Taye Diggs. Everybody's doing that. But of course, her most recent roles, of course, you know her from Queen Ramonda in the Black Panther movies, and of course, Avengers Endgame. And she also won a Golden Globe for her role in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. For those that don't know, and also she is currently producing and starring in 911, which was on Fox, but now has switched over to ABC for season 7. And another history fact for her: she is the highest paid woman of color on TV. Makes $450,000 an episode.
Still not enough.
There you go. You're right. You're right. Producing.
If you think back to Friends, when that was on however many years ago, they were all making $1 million an episode.
Wow.
So for her, this many years later, to only be making 450 is still not enough. Do better, Hollywood. But we'll get to that. Go ahead. Look,
Yeah,
it's your show. Go ahead. Go
that's
ahead.
all right. I've seen you in action, so I already know you're gonna have an opinion and you're gonna drop it in there. But that's cool though. That's cool. But yeah, definitely Angela Bassett. Got to give her flowers. Got to recognize her as Black Girl Magic, of course, obviously. But we got to get to you, of course, and you are definitely Black Girl Magic and all the different things that you do. Because I don't
Thank you.
anyone that has done as many things as you have done. Now, I've got one thing. Now, I did a little research on you, and actually,
Okay, let's see.
you actually have a connection to the AFC South with
Mhm,
Ryans, which actually
mhm.
executive director of the Namika Ryans Foundation, which I thought that was interesting. We're gonna get into that, but
Okay.
I do want to get.
And I also used to work for the Tennessee Titans.
Yes, that is true too. That is true.
Okay.
I believe someone had mentioned that you did that as well.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So you definitely have been around the South. I'm sorry. Let me
Yeah,
say it right. The South. You don't put the th on it, but
that's okay. It's okay. We'll get it out. Mhm.
All right. So we're gonna get back to, of course, we're gonna get back to your younger years in terms of your youth and growing up in Alabama. Where exactly
Mhm.
did you grow up in Alabama?
It's a town called Bessemer, Alabama. Are you familiar with Bessemer, Alabama?
I've never been there, but I've heard that name from another gentleman, a gentleman. I'm sorry, that actually is from that area.
Okay, so Bo Jackson is from Bessemer. D'Amico Ryans is from Bessemer. I am
Mm-hmm.
from Bessemer. And
Right.
so it's a town not too far from Birmingham. Most people are familiar with Birmingham, but that's where I grew up. Single mom, grew up to a single mom. I have three siblings.
Okay. All right. So, what was it like just growing up there in Alabama? Because I mean, honestly, I've been to Alabama maybe a couple times. Been to like Birmingham, but other than that, I've drove through Alabama. That's just about it, to be honest.
You know what? So now that I'm in Los Angeles, I have lived a lot of different places. So I grew up in Alabama, but I've lived in Nashville, Miami, Connecticut, Atlanta, and now Los Angeles. I will say Alabama and Birmingham, particularly, is one of my favorite places to live. One, I have a house there, and so I like where my house is. I like the neighborhood. I like being close to my mom. But I think Birmingham doesn't do itself any favors in getting people to understand Birmingham or even Alabama at large. We have such a storied history in civil rights and in the fight for social justice that sometimes that's the only story people have ever heard. So when I tell people, especially out here in Los Angeles, that I'm from Alabama or I'm from Birmingham, they immediately see black and white footage. They see hoses. They see dogs, and unfortunately, people don't realize Birmingham is a hotbed for a lot of tech. We have several Michelin star restaurants there. I mean, it's actually a really cool community. But Birmingham leans into that historical reference too. So I think they kind of aren't doing themselves any favors. But I love Alabama. I went to the University of Alabama, and it's just a different type of life. It's slow, but it's a little bit. I appreciate the vibration there, I'll say.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, you did say it's a little slower there, of course, and it's a little slower here in Nashville compared to LA. But
Uh-huh.
what did you all do for fun, kind of growing up and different things like that?
I took my glasses off because I feel like it's such a glare, but now I can't see. Okay, so anyway, I'm like, I'm like, why is that such a glare on my glasses? Okay, so me and my brothers and sisters, we would play a lot of games. We would perform for each other. We're all natural entertainers. We would play a game called I Bet You Can't Make Me Laugh, where we would just sit there and do the silliest things. We would write songs, sing, harmonize. We would go on like great adventures. So my siblings were really my friends, growing up. Now, what's interesting about that, even with a single mom, she still gave us this idea about ourselves that even though we were poor kids, um, she never let us see ourselves as poor. And she never engaged with us like we were poor kids in Alabama. She would even say, don't let nobody tell you you poor. You're not poor. You're poor. You're poor. So she gave us this gift of confidence that has served me so well throughout my life. And so growing up was a lot of fun. I had grandparents and cousins, and I can remember in my childhood. I'm blessed to have had a great childhood.
Okay. All right. Now, of course, as kids, we all come up with different things we want to be. Of course, I wanted to be a pro football player at one point. I made it to college playing, but I didn't quite make it to the NFL.
Mhm.
What were some of the things that you had aspirations to be when you were a kid?
It's interesting. I People ask me that a lot. I don't know that I ever knew what I wanted to be. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, right? I just have always known what I was good at, which was talking and writing and telling stories. And so I got a degree in journalism from the University of Alabama, and through different ways, whether it was in sports as a publicist or in marketing or in public relations or as a stand-up comedian or as a news anchor, all the different things I've done now as a screenwriter and actress, it's all storytelling. So I really have always wanted to be someone who got a chance to make people feel good, to encourage people, to entertain people, to educate people. I don't know that I ever had an idea of what that was, though. Like, what would the job be? So I've never thought about what I would be when I grow up. And it's still a question I get asked a lot here in Hollywood. And I'm like, if you ask me what I want to be whatever I want to be. And that's going to change day by day. So,
Mhm.
you know, but my whole family, like I said, is very funny and loud and lightweight, obnoxious. I enjoy that. So I would say I'm a storyteller, and it just is various means to it.
Got you. Well, I will say that definitely we have something common in terms of writing because I definitely do write outside of this and doing things like that. Yeah, I've written probably hmm, lost track, maybe like 6 or 7 short story series,
Oh, nice. Okay.
basically. So like one of them was like 20 parts. So yeah.
And it takes a real commitment to write, and people don't realize that when you do write, even if it's just as a passion, it still takes a real dedication and discipline to sit down and write and get the stories out of your head. So, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. I do it quite uniquely, I should say. I don't. How some people will tell you about putting out your characters and write your characters out. And no, I don't do any of that stuff. I just
Oh,
basically
really? Okay.
literally I sit down, I put on some kind of album I like to listen to. Like, for example, I listen to the Black's album, East Atlanta Love Letter. I'll throw that in
Okay.
and I'll literally will sit there and just write out a whole chapter, and then I'll just listen to the album over again and write another chapter, and it'll just keep going. Yeah, so I've done that to like
Nice.
plenty of different albums, and I just create these characters as I go, which people look at me and like, how are you able to? I'm like, I don't know. I just go back to the previous one, kind of make sure I don't just completely butcher this character in the next one, and then I just go ahead and write it. So by the time I'm done, listen to the album over again, I'm done with a whole nother section of it right there.
Yeah.
So
And everybody has a process, right? The trick is trying to figure out what works best for you because it's not a one size fits all type scenario when you're writing for sure.
right. So of course, wanted to get into the days growing up. I definitely got to ask you about how was it going to the University of Alabama? How was that?
Why did you ask it like that?
Because I am a Tennessee football fan, so I
Okay.
have to ask. I'm
Okay.
interested.
Okay. It's like it was a loaded question from you. I didn't know why. Um, okay. So I will say I did not originally plan to attend the University of Alabama. My original plan was to move to Atlanta and attend Clark Atlanta University. And my mom told me I needed to apply to more than one school, and I did not. I only applied to Clark, and I got accepted to Clark, but there was something that mixed up with registration and orientation where I was getting all of this information delayed after these things had happened. And so my mom's looking at me like, so what you gonna do? You're not going to Clark because you ain't doing none of the stuff you're supposed to do. And I applied to Alabama on a Monday, got an acceptance letter on that same Thursday, and got a partial scholarship for journalism. So that's how I ended up at Alabama. And I will say, going to Alabama was a great experience for me, but I am very intentional with my time. So I made the most of my time as a student at the university. I saw very early on in being a minority on campus, this was considered what a PWI or a predominantly white institution. And so, being one of the Black people in lower numbers there on campus, especially we're talking about in the 1900s. But I took advantage of being the only one in a lot of my classes. I took advantage of, working in the athletic department, being the Black woman that was working with all of the teams. And that's where I really got a chance to set myself up to have a great career after Alabama on some of the highest, biggest platforms, because Alabama had that respect. But I would say it was a great opportunity for me to grow as an individual. I think also being a Black person on that campus, for me, now everyone doesn't have the same experience, but for me, I was able to lean into my Blackness. I felt even more special and unique because it wasn't that many of me, I could appreciate how special I was, right? And so whereas some people might feel like, well, let me try to assimilate more, let me try to be more like, I was like, oh, I'm the Black one, let's go. And it also, I think, prepared me to never shrink in any room with anybody, because um, I I don't have imposter syndrome at all. And I think I first started really honing in on not having that when I was at the University of Alabama. I knew I was just as good as everybody else, probably better. And that wasn't a cockiness. It was, I'm not going to let these people convince me that they got something I
Okay. All right. We do got something in common that I actually was interested in going to Clark Atlanta. I didn't quite get into Clark Atlanta or anything like that, but I was interested in that and interested in Hampton. And the funny
don't. Okay,
part
yeah.
is, I actually ended up going to University of Tennessee at Martin, not UT Knoxville, but UT Martin. Played football there. But honestly, after I had committed and everything, was going to UT Martin, then here comes Hampton and here comes Clark sending me information about wanting to go there. And I'm like, okay, why couldn't y'all do this like
Well,
way before I signed? Why?
Oh, you could have transferred. You didn't think about transferring?
I didn't think about transferring, but I don't want to go through this decommitting and I'm gonna sign this paperwork. So it was a lot harder then than it is
Hmm.
now to kind of move and do all those
Yeah.
different things. So I would have loved to have went to Hampton because I was like really, really, really wanting to go there. And of course, it didn't happen until after I had already, I don't hear back from them until after I had already signed. So I was like, well, thanks, Hampton. Y'all could have been a little earlier, but thanks.
All's
But
well that ends well.
right, right. But hey, we are going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your career, kind of go into that and all the different branches there. All right, we'll be right back.
Okay.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South with Miss Eunice Elliott. And I just want to kind of go into your career. And of course, you mentioned earlier that you've done a myriad of different things, but what all are you currently doing now with in your career?
Now? Oh gosh. It depends on the day. So today I was, what did I have to go to today? So I work at TMZ, and
Mm-hmm.
my official title is tour guide,
Mm-hmm.
officially. Um, but I do the show and I do the podcast and I train the tour guides and I run the social media for the tours and the marketing and all that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of different things. I'm also a writer, and so right now I'm currently in some rewrites for a pilot script I've written and also for a feature film I've written. And stand-up comedian and commercial actress primarily is what I auditioned for and tried to book out here. And let's see, what else do I do? Podcaster, I guess. And I don't know. Depends on the day. But today I am let's see, what am I I actually think I might have been off work today.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just, I've always been someone who enjoys doing a lot of things. That might be the Gemini in me. I get bored quickly and easily. So, I've published 4 books. I write and produce sketch comedy, and I write with other comedians and for other comedians. I've run nonprofits, so it just depends on the day and where the passion is. That's where I try to go, where I'm going to be most excited.
Okay. All right. So my follow-up question to that is, how do you keep everything in order with all the things that you do?
Who said anything was in order? What? Order is overrated. Order is overrated. You know what? I actually have a pretty good memory once I commit to a time and a date, right? And so, like, let's say even for this, I forgot to tell you my availability, but once I told it to you, I knew what it was, right? And so, for me, I pretty much, when I get up in the morning, I go through what I have to get done that day. And so it's pretty easy for me. I'm a goal oriented person. So it's almost like checking off goals with each thing all day, right? It's like, okay, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. And then by the time I go to bed, I kind of play over in the day. Did I get everything done I'm supposed to get done today? And then that's what I do the next day. So I'm pretty organized in general with all the different hats I wear in general.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So,
But you know
of
what? But
course,
they're all the root of them. I'm pretty much doing kind of the same thing in every situation, right? It's storytelling, it's talking, it's writing, it's performing. So it's not like I have to change in these different spaces. It's just which space am I in right now?
got you. Okay. All right. Kind of the Gemini in you, playing the different, I guess the different roles in different places, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, comedy. Okay, I know you didn't originally start out in comedy, but how did you kind of get into doing comedy? How did that journey start?
Well, like I said, I grew up in a funny family. I never
Mhm.
thought about being a comedian, and I actually was offended my senior year in high school when I got voted class clown. I was very offended. I was like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" I really felt like I was supposed to get cutest girl, best dressed, most likely to like something that meant something, right? And I never thought about doing comedy. But as I grew up and I would travel, I would go to comedy clubs and I would find myself wanting to rewrite the comedian's material. And I would drive my friends crazy. I'm like, when he said this, it would have been funnier if he said this. And what he would think, and I would want to restructure everybody's set. And so I start thinking, well, how could I write for comedians if no one knows that I'm funny? I started doing open mics. Now that the entire comedy career came from a breakup, I got really depressed. And so from that depression, it was like, what could I do that no one could ever take from me that I'll always be kind of excited and interested in? And so it was, let me go see if I can do comedy. And so I started just with doing open mics. And then people start hearing about me. And I think when I started getting paid to do comedy, I would tell my mom, this is the biggest racket going. Like I literally said this same thing for free at lunch. And now they're giving me money to say it at 7 o'clock on a microphone, But it was just people who know me or have seen me, and then they see me on stage. The number one feedback I usually get is, "Oh, you're just like you on stage." Like, "Oh, it's just you." And so I've been doing comedy for 16 years now, and
Mhm.
it's this fun thing I get to do. I enjoy comedy. But I would say, yeah, I started 16 years ago after I was depressed, and just haven't gotten depressed enough to stop.
Well, I guess in some ways we can kind of, I guess, thank the depression for kind of.
Yes, thank that asshole for breaking up with me. I'm sorry, can I cut
That's okay. That's okay. You're
Thank him for going on with his life because that freed me up to be great.
good.
I'm so
Always.
happy. I'm so happy and pleased.
Now,
But no,
I
I
did.
look back at that time and I think back to when I was dating that person, and he is a really great person. It just was bad timing. But I remember dating him, and when I didn't, when I realized we weren't going to be together in the way that I hoped and dreamed, I just got so sad because I hadn't really put those eggs in my own basket. And so that's really what I hope anybody watching will think about is you can love somebody, you can be crazy about somebody, but put your eggs in your basket. You always have to sustain yourself emotionally, financially, just never give it all away because God forbid anything can happen that you will leave yourself with nothing for yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Good bit of knowledge. Okay. Now I did notice, of course, I kind of I was looking, I was like, okay, there she goes in Queen Sugar. Okay.
Oh yeah.
With Ralph Angel sitting in the courtroom and everything. Okay. So that was so what
Mhm.
in terms of acting and being a comedian, what's the different sensation you kind of get out of acting that you don't get out of being a comedian?
I would say acting is my least favorite thing to do. Acting, I'm still trying to learn how to love it. I'll tell you why I'm not. I'm an actress, and that's great. Don't let the folks back in Hollywood hear this. But for me, being a storyteller, a lot of times when you're an actress, you don't have control necessarily, right? You're not the director, you're not the writer, you're not the cinematographer, you're not the editor. So a lot of things that are going into telling the story, you're just this vessel, right? So you can be a good actress or a bad actress, obviously. But because I'm so excited about the entire creative process, a lot of times when I'm acting, I feel powerless. I feel like, well, I'm just sitting here waiting for somebody to say action and cut, and then I ain't got nothing else to do, right? Um, and that's probably crazy, but like with Queen Sugar, uh, yeah, that was a crazy moment because have to sit across from Kofi, the actor who played Ralph Angel, and he's gorgeous, and you're sitting there and he's looking at you talking, and you're just like, okay, okay. I was a great senator from the state of Louisiana. But even from that, Kofi and I had a great vibe. We stay in contact. His birthday was last week. I text him happy birthday. So those are the gifts I feel like acting gives me is you get to be around other creatives, other storytellers, you get to support each other and grow and be inspired and encouraged by everyone's journey along the way. But I'm usually going to want to be in charge. So acting is a little stressful for me because I'm waiting for somebody to tell me what to do.
Okay. All right. So
Not my
one thing
favorite.
I did notice is that you definitely were in charge when it came to the podcast. Done there, been that. I was always on that, literally
In
like all the time
charge.
watching it.
In charge. No.
Yeah,
No.
I don't know, but just watching it, I was like, yeah, she definitely is making sure this ship is going and sailing right. So,
Oh, that's
just
sweet.
watching that podcast, I definitely watching and listening, I should say. I definitely enjoyed it. Of course, y'all touched on some topics, and I'm like, okay, hopefully this one doesn't go like overboard, but I get the points that were made, and I was like, okay, cool, and I enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite podcasts to listen to.
Oh, thank you. I
So
appreciate that.
definitely. So in terms of that podcast, the podcasting world, how do you kind of enjoy the podcasting world as a whole compared to everything else that you do?
So that wasn't, I've done several podcasts.
Hmm.
That wasn't my first one. My first one I did was called Oh No Girl Yes, which was a dating podcast. We did that for
Oh,
5 seasons. It's available on all platforms. Oh No Girl Yes. But what I enjoy about podcasting in general is again another means of storytelling. Whether you're interviewing someone or you're discussing a topic on Done There Been That, it was more perspective based of what's happening and why do we have the opinions we have based on the lives we've lived or the experiences we've shared or had. So the thing I don't like about podcasts is that I think people just think it's an easy way to just get a microphone and just pop off about whatever, and yeah, everyone has an opinion, everyone has a right. But I've always been someone that if I'm not passionate about it or if it's not something that I can see being interesting, educational, inspirational, I'm not really into it. So I think for me, those are the podcasts I tend to enjoy, maybe more edutainment. I'm learning something, but I'm also enjoying how I'm learning it, right? Not necessarily being preached to or lectured to. So I've always, and I used to do a podcast with the mayor of Birmingham for the city. So I like elevated conversations. I like conversations. Um, I don't like to debate. Okay, so let me say this: I don't like to debate, but I can see where you may have a totally different opinion or experience or perspective than me, and I have 100% appreciation for that because I can't tell you that your experience was wrong or your background is wrong or your perspective is wrong because it's yours, right? It's unique to you, and so I think sometimes that's the challenge I have when I listen to podcasts or even have been guests on podcasts. It's like, listen, once I share my perspective, I'm not going to argue with you about it, just like I'm not going to argue with you about yours, right? It's like, oh, that's interesting. I've never had that happen to me. In my experience, this has happened. But that's interesting. That's happened to you. Okay, I've never had that. That's real information. Now, that ain't never happened. Oh, that's cap. That's cap. That ain't never happened to you. Wait, what? So I think sometimes podcasts kind of lean more towards this debate, controversial, let me be provocative type thing. And, I don't know. I don't really get into those as much.
Yeah, I'm definitely not an argumentative person when it comes to podcasting.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely not my style. So whoever, does that, they can kind of have that over there.
They're gonna get those. They're gonna get those viral clips, and they're gonna get that. And sometimes that's just what people want. I'm not an argumentative person. Now, I would tell you most of my ex-boyfriends will probably disagree with that assessment of myself. But I'm not an argumentative person. I'm pretty easy breezy and carefree. So we can totally disagree. It's not going to affect me like that. I don't care.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So
I say that in defense of them there been that, because I think sometimes people thought because Mike and I would sometimes kind of go back and forth. I don't care. Now Mike is more attached to the debate of everything, and I'm like, Mike, I don't care. I don't care. Like, you got to know, I don't care about that. Yeah.
Oh, I could definitely sense the energy, of course, obviously. But
but I've known Mike for like 25 years. But that was probably the most we had ever really, talked and shared, and so it was definitely a cool experience.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually had Mike on the show before too. So. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And Mike used to work in Nashville when I was at the Titans.
News Channel 2.
Yeah.
News Channel 2. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I actually met him at an event he was emceeing for Nate Washington actually here. So that's where I actually physically met him before.
Okay. Nice.
So, I do have to ask though also about TMZ. So you did mention TMZ, and I did look. I was like, okay, there she is on TV talking and all those different things. So I'm like, how did kind of the TMZ come about? How did that scenario come about for you?
So I moved to Los Angeles last February, and I was looking for a little part-time job so I could be available for auditions and stuff. It's really expensive out here. And they had a job opening for a TMZ tour guide. I knew someone who worked at TMZ, so I said, hey, I just applied for this tour guide position. He said, okay, I'll tell the guy, who's in charge of that to look out for your resume or whatever. Had the interview and it went well, and then I got hired as a tour guide. Now, the way I end up on TV is a couple ways you can end up on TMZ as a tour guide. That means you've taken the tours out and you saw some celebrities out on the tour, which we see celebrities all the time. We have cameras on the bus, we go interview the celebrity, and then we get to come back on the show and say, hey, Harvey, guess who I saw today out on the tour? So you'll see tour guides on the show that way. I ended up on the show because we started building a different tour. And so I spent a lot of time with Harvey working on this tour, and Harvey just, for lack of a better term, fell in love. He was just like, who is this girl and why is she not on the show all the time? And, me having a background in television, me being a stand-up comedian, I'm easy on TV, right? It's not, it's not brain surgery. And so they started having me come do the show. And so that's pretty much how it came to be was I'm a tour guide. That's why I say on paper, I'm a part-time tour guide, but I've had a great opportunity being on the show. I've co-hosted TMZ Live with Harvey, and I didn't even realize when he asked me to do that he doesn't ask everybody to do it. It wasn't until after I did it that I realized people who had been there 10 years had never done it. And I'm like, oh, I thought it, yeah. So I will say, TMZ is an interesting place to work. I probably have one of the more fun jobs because I'm not there in the building every day. I'm out in Hollywood. I'm out on the bus. I'm meeting tourists and talking, and it's fun. TMZ is a very intense place to work because if you know anything about TMZ, you know that we are usually first and usually accurate in any of the reporting. And so that takes a lot of work. And then what happens is you see all the other news organizations or blogs or gossip pages then say, according to TMZ, and then take the story. And so from TMZ standpoint, like, we did all this work, we did all this, and then everybody else just says, according to TMZ, so we know that everyone's waiting for us to do the work for them to have a story to share. So, it's mindless entertainment. It's fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I enjoy Harvey, but it's also because I have never, gotten Harvey's, on his bad side. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
good. I'm good.
Gotcha.
For
Well,
now. For now. There's always time.
well, I have one other question for you.
Okay.
See who was one black woman that has actually inspired you to do all the things that you do?
Oh wow. Well, this will be easy today. Well, I would say one is my mom. She's number
Mhm.
one. My mom, I mentioned she's a single mother. She got married to my dad. They met in college and they had 4 kids and then they got divorced. And so my mom went back to college with 4 kids. She was in college and working part time at Taco Bell. And I remember being a kid, just being so excited that she would bring home tacos or cinnamon crispers. Looking back as an adult, I'm like, that must have been so stressful, right? And then she went back to school and got a degree in nuclear medicine technology and accumulated in her career as a nuclear medicine technologist. And at one point, she was president of the Nuclear Medicine Society. And so I've just always been very proud of my mom of like, how could you do that with 4 kids? And who told you could do that? So I'm proud of her because I'm proud of myself. And I know that 99.99% of anything I've ever done well is because my mom told me I could, even to this day. Um, but if I was going to say someone who wasn't my mom, I would say last night I had the opportunity to meet Jane Kennedy. And it was a very emotional thing for me because growing up as a little black girl in Alabama, Jane Kennedy was like a superstar, gorgeous black woman in Hollywood on the cover of the magazine, and you never think of. I remember being a kid, I didn't realize those people in TV and magazines were like humans. You know what I'm saying? It's like, who are these people? They're celebrities. And so I got to meet her last night at an event for the NAACP, and she's still beautiful, still gracious. Um, she wished my grandma's not with us anymore, but it was my grandma's birthday and my grandma loved her. And she's like, let's send your grandma a message. And I was like, well, we don't, I lost my grandma. She's like, we can still send her a heavenly message. And boy, I'm talking about, I'm slobbering. But I told her, I said, you set the stage for Oprah, for Gayle King, for Pam Oliver, for Elisa Salters, for all of us that we saw you back in 1978. Like, she's doing it. It also gave me a great appreciation for my challenges I'm having today. My challenges aren't that bad because she was the first. And so it was that much harder, at a time where we already have a black person on the air. We don't need another one, or we can't have another one, or the Southern affiliates won't take it, or, all the things that they make up to try to give the impression we're not the standard. So for today, I'll say Jane Kennedy, but I'm blessed to have so many. It used to be Maya Angelou when I was younger because she did so many things. She was a writer, a poet, an actress, a dancer, a professor. So I think that informed me as a child that I can do all the things, I can do everything. Um, Gosh, so many, of course, you mentioned Angela Bassett. This year, able to see people like Davine Joy and Danielle Brooks and beautiful black women of all shapes and sizes and hues be celebrated because they're talented. Gosh,
Mhm.
I just it's so many black women. I would say all of them. Beyonce,
There you
all
go.
of them, all of them, all
All
of them.
right.
And even if I've never met a black woman, 99% of the time, just waking up and committing to be a black woman again for another day, hey, you a hero. You a superhero just from that alone. Whoever you are, you're doing good, girl.
There we have it. There we have it. Now
Yeah.
we've reached the end of the show, but of course, the
Oh,
show isn't
okay.
over. The show isn't
Okay.
quite over just yet. We do have a game on this show. It's called
Oh,
Five
okay.
Questions, Two Answers, and One Choice.
Mm,
Of course, it could be in sports, could be comedy, could be anything.
okay.
Um, and of course, you got to make a choice. Are you ready?
Now, what choice am I making? What category?
No, no. I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you a question, and I'm going to give you two answers. You got to pick one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
All right. So, let's see. Comedy or writing? Which one do you enjoy more?
Comedy.
Comedy. Okay. All right. You got to
Do
pick
I
one
get to say
comedian
why I picked the choice?
if you like. Yes.
Well, comedy is immediate gratification.
Mhm.
Writing, is rewrites and arduous and editing and waiting and marinating and rewrite, so I think it's a stand-up comedy right then. Hey, da 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 da, hey. Well, that's what I think comedy.
All right. Speaking of comedy, the next question: which one do you think is funnier, Steve Harvey or Cedric the Entertainer?
Those are the two choices.
Those are two choices. Yes.
Uh, where are balloons coming from?
I have no idea where those balloons came from.
I'm like,
I literally
okay.
just saw them. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, that was okay. I didn't touch it. Okay, I'm gonna say Cedric the Entertainer.
Okay. All right. I got two movies for you.
Okay.
Which one would you watch first? Love and Basketball or The Wood?
Love and Basketball.
Okay. All right.
Let me say
Now,
something about Love and Basketball. One of my
okay.
favorite movies. One of my favorite movies. I've seen it a trillion times since I have
Same.
moved here. When I tell you the people that I've gotten to meet, Gina Blythewood Prince, who directed it,
Mm-hmm.
I've met her several times, and Omar Epps is actually Marlon Wayans' best friend. So because Marlon
Okay.
is my mentor, I'm with him all the time. I get to hang out with Omar Epps all the time, and his wife Keisha Epps, who was in the music group Total.
Yep.
So it's like sometimes I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, Quincy. Oh my God, Q, why you do my girl like that? Yeah. So it's probably even more of my favorite movie now, making, connections and relationships with people who were the stars of it.
Right, right. Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite movies by far. Of course, I do like a 1980s movies as well, which involves dancing, which I'll tell you about that in a second. But of course, two different jobs. Which one did you enjoy more? The newsroom, Channel 13, or the executive director of D'Amico Ryan's organization? Which one did you
Executive
enjoy
director of
more?
D'Amico Ryan. Executive director of D'Amico Ryan. That's easy. So
I
I
kind of
want to tell
figured you would
you
say
how
that.
how I ended up with D'Amico Ryan. So this is a
Mhm.
good story. So I mentioned D'Amico Ryan's is from my hometown of Bessemer. So imagine it, Bessemer, Alabama. Then I went to the University of Alabama. Then I worked at ESPN, and then I ended up working for the Tennessee Titans. 10 years later, D'Amico Ryans graduates from my high school in Bessemer, Alabama. He then goes to the University of Alabama. So the people that worked in the athletic department at Alabama will say, "Oh, we got your homeboy D'Amico Ryans." I'm like, I don't know this kid. I've been gone for 10 plus years. Why would I know a kid coming out of high school right now? And so then when he got drafted by the Texans, my former boss at the Titans was now at the Texans. She was like, "Hey, we drafted your homeboy D'Amico Ryans, Alabama." I'm like, I don't know this dude. I've been gone for 10 years. I don't know this. Who are y'all keep asking me about this guy? So we were both at some event in Bessemer. And somebody said, "Oh, D'Amico Ryan's here." And I said, "Who is he?" And so they point him out. And I said, "Hey, my name is Eunice Elliott." He says, "Why does everybody think I know you?" And I said, and so we met, we became friends, and I ended up running his foundation for many years. Very proud of him, still in touch with him. So proud of the work he did in Houston as first year head coach. So, yeah. But that's how we got together, is everyone thought we already knew each other. We didn't. And then we did some great work together in the community.
Okay. All right. Last question I have. I know that Mike Hill is from was lived in those parts and grew up in those parts too. So who
Hmm.
would you say is more popular in Alabama, him or you?
Me. It was easy. Move on. Was that a real question?
Yeah, that was a real question.
Well, let me tell you why I'm more popular. A lot of people don't realize Mike is from Bessemer, right? So people usually don't realize he's from Bessemer until he's talking to someone from Bessemer, or we're saying, "Oh, my homeboy," or D'Amico, right? A lot of times people are like, "Oh, Mike Hill's from Bessemer." So I think he's just not associated with Bessemer as much as I am associated with Bessemer in Bessemer.
Okay. Yeah, he definitely doesn't get associated because he talks about the New York Knicks. So nobody
Right.
would think anybody in Alabama would be talking about the New York
Yeah,
Knicks.
he just it was a part of his life, but we don't believe him. He actually graduated either with my sister or the year before my sister from high school. So we went to the same high school and everything. I mean, not at the same time. But yeah, no, definitely me. That was the easy one. Definitely
Oh my goodness!
me.
This has been it's been a blast talking to you. It's definitely been good learning about you and how you kind of got into some of the things you gotten into as well, and the myriad of different things that you're doing as well.
Thank
I
you.
just want to say thank you for your time. If you can, let everyone know where they can find you on social media and all the different things that you may have coming up or are doing currently.
Oh, well, thank you for the invitation again. It's very kind of you. You reached out and said you wanted to have me on for Women's History Month. So I really, I'm glad you thought of me. And this has been fun. As far as finding me, I am one of the rare ones on social media under my full government name, which is Eunice Elliott. If you don't remember Eunice Elliott, just remember Eunice. When you put it into the machine, if it doesn't say obituary next to it, it's me. I'm the last active duty Eunice in these streets, really, you know. As far as what I have coming up, what can I talk about? Let's see. So I mentioned I have some scripts I'm writing. Will be getting to the point of them being produced soon. I have the Netflix is a Joke Comedy Festival out here in LA coming up in May. And in between that, you know, I'm just always somewhere. Catch me on TMZ. You know, catch me in the street shouting, I'm around. I'm around. You know, I don't
All
know.
right.
I never know what to say I'm working on because I'm always working on so many things. I'm like, I don't know. Just hang out, see what happens next.
Got you. Well, I thank you again for your time. Of course, everyone, you know, I'm the host of Touring the AFC South. Of course, my name is Mike Patton. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePatton 82. Of course, the artist formerly known as Twitter. I say that to honor, you know, the artist formerly known as Prince or Prince. Of course, you can find me on Threads and Instagram at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And of course, you can find Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And of course, we're on YouTube as well. I want to thank you all for your time for tuning in. Eunice, if you can hang on for 1 second once we end the show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.